The massive alien ship moved through space like a floating city made of crystal and metal. Ambassador Zethkar stood on the bridge, looking at the small blue planet ahead. Earth looked peaceful from this distance. White clouds moved over green and brown land. The oceans sparkled under the light of the yellow star. It seemed like any other world that wanted to join the Galactic Federation. Zethkar had done this many times before. His people, the Valerians, had been part of the Federation for over 3,000 years. They helped new species learn the ways of civilized space travel. Most new species were grateful for the chance to join the galaxy's greatest alliance. They understood that working together was better than fighting alone. The communication system made a soft sound. A human voice came through the speakers. The translator changed the strange sounds into words Zethkar could understand. Welcome to Earth Space, Valerian ship. This is Commander Jake Harrison of the Earth Defense Fleet Vessel Endeavor. We are honored to host your diplomatic mission. Zethkar pressed a button to reply. Thank you, Commander Harrison. We look forward to learning about your people and sharing the wisdom of the Federation. As their ship moved closer to Earth, Zethkar saw more human vessels. They looked different from Federation ships, where Valerian ships were smooth and curved, like works of art. Human ships looked hard and angular. They had thick armor and what looked like weapon ports all along their sides. It seemed like too much protection for a peaceful species. Curious design choices, said Counselor Yithmar, Zethkar's second-in-command. The tall, thin alien studied the human ships on their viewing screens. Why do they need so much defensive capability? Zethkar made a dismissive gesture with his forearms. Young species often overbuild their early ships. They will learn better ways when they join the Federation. We have seen this pattern many times. The Endeavor was larger than Zethkar had expected. It stretched almost 2 kilometers from front to back. Gun turrets dotted its surface like metal thorns. Hangar bays opened to show rows of small fighter craft. Everything looked ready for war. Commander Harrison met them at the docking port. He was tall for a human, with short brown hair and calm blue eyes. His uniform was dark blue with silver decorations. Other humans stood behind him in neat rows. They all looked alert and professional. Ambassador Zethkar, welcome aboard, Harrison said. He made a small bow. My crew and I are excited to show you what humanity has achieved. As they walked through the ship's corridors, Zethkar noticed more strange things. The walls were thick metal with blast doors every few meters. Emergency weapon lockers lined the hallways. Signs pointed to battle stations and emergency shelters. Everything was built like the ship expected to fight at any moment. Your ship seems very well protected, Yithmar observed. Harrison smiled. Space can be dangerous. We believe in being prepared for anything. They entered a large meeting room where more humans waited. Dr. Lisa Murphy, Earth's chief scientist, stood near a large display screen. She was a short woman with red hair and green eyes. Her smile seemed genuine as she welcomed the alien visitors. We have prepared presentations about human culture, science, and history, Dr. Murphy said. We hope this will help you understand what we can bring to the Federation. The next few hours were filled with information about Earth. Humans had developed clean energy that could power entire cities. Their medical technology could repair damaged organs and cure diseases that killed other species. They had art, music, and literature that showed great creativity. But Zethkar kept noticing odd details in their presentations. Human entertainment seemed to focus heavily on conflict and survival. Their sports were often violent competitions. Their stories always seemed to involve someone fighting against terrible odds. Even their children's games involved pretend battles. Your species seems very interested in conflict scenarios, Zethkar said during a break in the presentations. Dr. Murphy looked uncomfortable for a moment. Humans enjoy challenges. We like stories about overcoming difficult situations. It helps us prepare for real problems. Captain Ryan Torres joined them for the evening meal. He was older than Harrison, with gray hair and scars on his hands. He had been a soldier before becoming a diplomat. When he spoke about human military history, his eyes became distant. We have had our share of conflicts, Torres admitted, but we learned from them. We know the cost of war. That is why we want to join the Federation. Peace is always better than fighting. The alien delegation ate human food and found it pleasant. The humans were good hosts. They answered questions politely and seemed genuinely interested in galactic civilization. But Zethkar could not shake the feeling that something was different about these people. The next day, they observed a human military training exercise. Harrison explained it as a routine drill to keep his crew sharp. What they saw made the aliens uncomfortable. Human soldiers moved with deadly precision. They practiced fighting in corridors, in zero gravity, and in hostile environments. Their weapons were designed to cause maximum damage. Their tactics seemed brutal compared to Federation standards. When alien security forces trained, they focused on containment and minimal force. They tried to stop threats without causing unnecessary harm. Human training looked like it was designed to completely destroy any enemy. "These are just basic defensive maneuvers," Harrison explained when he saw the aliens' shocked faces. "Every human crew learns these skills," Yithmar whispered to Zethkar in their private language. "They call this basic training. What do they consider advanced?" After the exercise, they met with more human officials. Everyone was polite and professional. They spoke about trade agreements, scientific cooperation, and cultural exchange. All the normal things that new Federation members discussed, but Zethkar noticed how the humans moved. Even the scientists and diplomats carried themselves like soldiers. They watched doorways and kept their hands free. They seemed relaxed, but their eyes never stopped moving. Dr. Murphy showed them human history files. The records were carefully edited to show human achievements, great buildings, scientific discoveries, works of art. But between the lines, Zethkar saw hints of something else, references to conflicts and struggles that seemed much larger than the humans admitted. "Your people seem to have faced many challenges," Zethkar said. "All growing species do," Dr. Murphy replied. "We learned from our mistakes. We want to do better now." That night, Zethkar met with his advisors. The other alien representatives shared their observations. The Crystalline Collective's ambassador found human efficiency disturbing. The Ethereal Council's observer worried about human weapons technology. Everyone agreed that humans were unlike any species they had encountered before. "They are hiding something," Yithmar said. "Their capabilities seem much greater than they admit." "All species have secrets," Zethkar replied. "We will learn more about them in time. For now, they seem willing to follow Federation laws. That is what matters." The meeting continued for 3 more days. Humans showed them more technology, more culture, and more reasons why they deserved Federation membership. By the end, Zethkar was ready to recommend approval. Humans seemed intelligent, capable, and peaceful enough. As the Valerian ship prepared to leave, Commander Harrison wished them a safe journey. "We hope to hear good news from the Federation Council soon," he said. Zethkar nodded. "I believe you." "Will! Welcome to Galactic Civilization, Commander." Neither of them knew that everything would change very soon. The galaxy was about to learn what humans were really capable of when pushed too far. 3 months passed after the diplomatic meeting. The Galactic Federation Council voted to accept humanity as a probationary member. Everything seemed normal. Human ships began trading with alien worlds. Human scientists shared research with Federation universities. Human diplomats attended council meetings and followed all the rules. Then the warning came from the Outer Rim territories. Long-range sensors detected massive ships moving toward the core worlds. The vessels were unlike anything in Federation databases. They were huge, dark, and covered with weapons. They moved in perfect formation like a swarm of metal insects. Federation's border patrol ships went to investigate. None of them came back. Admiral Kate Sullivan sat in the command center of Earth's Orbital Defense Station. She watched the Emergency Council meeting on her main screen. Representatives from dozens of species filled the Galactic Senate chamber. Their voices mixed together in panic and confusion. Ambassador Zethkar stood at the speaking podium. His usual calm was gone. His 4 arms shook as he read the latest reports. The invasion fleet consists of over 10,000 ships. They have destroyed every patrol vessel sent to observe them. All attempts at communication have failed. The Crystalline Collective's representative made a sound like breaking glass. "Who are they? What do they want?" "We call them the Zephyrian Horde," Zethkar replied. Our historians found references to them in ancient texts. They are a nomadic species that consumes everything in their path. They take no prisoners. They accept no surrender. They exist only to conquer and destroy. Admiral Sullivan leaned forward in her chair. She had read similar reports about species like this. Earth's military historians had studied many examples of total war, but the Federation had never faced anything like it. The council chamber erupted in debate. Some species wanted to evacuate the outer worlds. Others suggested sending diplomatic missions to negotiate. A few called for mobilizing the Federation defense fleet. "Our combined forces number over 50,000 ships," announced General Korath of the Thanagarian Empire. "We have defended the galaxy for 800 years. We will meet this threat as we have met all others." Admiral Sullivan knew better. She had studied the Federation's military doctrine. They fought like policemen trying to arrest criminals. They used minimum force and always tried to capture enemy ships intact. Their weapons were designed to disable, not destroy. Their tactics assumed the enemy would surrender when defeat became obvious. The Zephyrians would not surrender. 2 weeks later, the first battle reports arrived. The Federation's Grand Fleet met the Zephyrian horde at the Korvax system. It should have been an easy victory. The Federation outnumbered the enemy 5-1. Their ships were newer and better equipped. The battle lasted 4 hours. When it ended, 90% of the Federation fleet was destroyed. The Zephyrians lost less than 300 ships. The survivors' reports made no sense to Federation commanders. The enemy fought with no regard for their own survival. They rammed damaged ships into Federation vessels. They detonated their own reactors rather than retreat. They acted like wild animals instead of intelligent beings. Admiral Sullivan read the battle reports with growing understanding. The Federation had never learned to fight a real war. For 8 centuries, they had faced only pirates and raiders who ran away when outnumbered. They had forgotten that some enemies would rather die than lose. The emergency council session lasted for days. Species that had never agreed on anything suddenly found common ground in their terror. The Zephyrians were less than 6 weeks away from the core worlds. Every fleet sent against them was crushed. The greatest civilization in galactic history was about to fall. "We need help," Zethkar finally admitted. "Our methods are not working against this enemy." "What help?" demanded the Ethereal Council's observer. "We have tried everything. Conventional tactics fail. Negotiation is impossible. What other options exist?" Admiral Sullivan requested permission to address the council. Her image appeared on the main screen. Representatives from across the galaxy looked at her with desperate hope. "The Federation has graciously allowed humanity to observe these proceedings," she said. "We have studied your tactical reports. We believe we can help." "You have been Federation members for less than 4 months," General Korath replied. "Your entire fleet consists of a few hundred primitive vessels. What could you possibly do that we cannot?" Admiral Sullivan's expression did not change. "We can teach you how to fight a real war." Dr. Alex Carter arrived at the Federation capital 3 days later. He was Earth's leading military historian. His specialty was studying how civilizations destroy each other. The Federation Council had never needed such expertise before. Dr. Carter's first presentation shocked the alien audience into silence. He showed them records of human conflicts that made the Zephyrian invasion look small. Wars where entire continents burned. Battles where millions died in single days. Conflicts that lasted for generations without pause. The Federation has never experienced total war, Dr. Carter explained. You fight until casualties become unacceptable, then you negotiate a peace. This works when both sides think the same way. The Zephyrians do not think like you. He showed them examples of species that fought like the Zephyrians. Humans had faced such enemies many times throughout their history. They had learned how to defeat them. The key is matching their commitment, Dr. Carter continued. They are willing to lose everything to win. You must be willing to do the same, or you will lose everything anyway. Lieutenant Colonel Ben Davis demonstrated human military doctrine to a small group of Federation officers. What he showed them would have been considered war crimes under galactic law. Humans targeted enemy supply lines, destroyed civilian infrastructure, and eliminated entire populations if necessary. We call it total war, Davis explained. The enemy's ability to fight must be completely destroyed. Their willingness to fight must be broken. Anything less than total victory ensures total defeat. The alien officers looked horrified. This was not how civilized beings conducted warfare. This was barbarism. This was madness. "Your methods are monstrous," protested Admiral Theiss of the Altarian Republic. "We cannot adopt such brutal tactics." Davis's expression hardened. "Then you will die with honor while the Zephyrians burn your worlds. Your choice." General Susan Hayes arrived with detailed plans for fighting the Zephyrians. She was Earth's top strategic mind. Her reputation for winning impossible battles was legendary among human forces. "The Federation fleet fights like they expect the enemy to play by rules," Hayes told the War Council. "The Zephyrians have no rules. They will use any method that leads to victory. You must do the same." She outlined tactics that made seasoned Federation officers sick. Kamikaze attacks using unmanned ships, weapons that targeted life support systems instead of engines, strategies that assumed friendly casualties were acceptable as long as enemy casualties were higher. "These methods violate every treaty of civilized warfare," Zethkar protested. "Your treaties did not anticipate facing an uncivilized enemy," Hayes replied. "Adapt or become extinct. Those are your only choices." The debate raged for days. Some Federation members refused to abandon their principles. They would rather die as civilized beings than live as barbarians. Others began to see the logic in human methods. Survival sometimes required abandoning idealism. During a private meeting, Zethkar asked Admiral Sullivan a direct question. "Are humans truly willing to help us? Or do you see an opportunity to seize power while we are weak?" Sullivan considered her answer carefully. "Ambassador, my species has spent 10,000 years learning how to destroy things. We got very good at it, but we also learned that building something is harder than destroying it. The Federation represents the greatest peaceful achievement in galactic history. We want to preserve it, not replace it." She paused, then continued. "But understand this. If we help you fight the Zephyrians, we will fight to win. That means using methods that will shock you. It means accepting casualties that will horrify you. It means becoming something that frightens you." "And after the war?" Zethkar asked. Sullivan's smile was cold as space. "After the war, you will understand why evolution creates predators, and you will be very grateful that we are on your side." The human fleet arrived at Arcturus Prime just as the Zephyrian siege reached its peak. The beautiful crystal cities that had stood for millennia were burning. Refugee ships fled in panic, while enemy vessels hunted them like predators chasing prey. The local defense force had been swept aside in hours. Commander Nick Foster stood on the bridge of his flagship watching the tactical display. 2,000 Zephyrian ships surrounded the planet. Their formation was perfect, their firepower overwhelming. Any sane commander would have retreated to fight another day. Foster grinned at his officers. "Gentlemen and ladies, it appears we are outnumbered 10-1. I like those odds." His tactical officer, Lieutenant Sarah Martinez, checked her instruments. "Sir, the enemy has us completely surrounded. Standard doctrine would recommend withdrawal." "Standard doctrine is for people who want to live through battles," Foster replied. "We're here to win them. Signal all ships. We're going in." The human fleet consisted of only 200 vessels. They were smaller than Federation ships, built for speed and hitting power rather than comfort. Where alien ships looked like works of art, human ships looked like weapons given form. The Zephyrians detected the approaching fleet and turned to meet them. They had crushed every enemy they had faced. These new ships would be no different. They moved in their standard battle formation, preparing to overwhelm the humans with superior numbers. They had never fought humans before. Captain Eric Johnson commanded the assault cruiser Wolverine. His ship led the first attack wave straight into the heart of the enemy formation. The Zephyrians opened fire when the humans came within range. Energy beams and projectiles filled the space between the fleets. Instead of returning fire at maximum range like Federation ships would have done, the humans charged forward. They flew through the enemy barrage like missiles seeking targets. Some ships took damage. Some ships were destroyed. The survivors kept coming. "All ships, prepare for knife fight protocols," Foster announced over the battle net. "Remember, we're Not here to trade shots at long range. We're here to gut them up close. Lieutenant Martinez led her fighter squadron into the thick of the battle. Her orders were simple: find enemy capital ships and kill them. How she did it was her choice. She chose the most direct method possible. Red Squadron, follow my lead, she called to her pilots. We're going to ram that battleship. Her wingman, pilot First Class Danny Wright, laughed over the comm. Which part of it, ma'am? The part that makes it explode, Martinez replied. The human fighters dove toward the massive Zephyrian vessel. Point defense guns tried to stop them. Most of the fighters made it through. They crashed into the battleship's hull at full speed, their reactors overloading on impact. The enemy ship broke apart in a chain of explosions. The Zephyrians had never seen anything like it. Intelligent beings did not deliberately destroy themselves to kill enemies. It was illogical. It was insane. It was terrifyingly effective. Captain Johnson's cruiser closed to point-blank range with a Zephyrian destroyer. Instead of exchanging broadsides like civilized opponents, his crew prepared for boarding action. They blew holes in the enemy hull and sent Marines across the gap between ships. Staff Sergeant Monica Clark led the boarding party through the enemy vessel. The Zephyrians were tough fighters, but they had never faced humans in close combat. Where most species tried to disable enemies and take prisoners, humans simply killed everything that moved. Remember, people, Clark called to her Marines as they fought through the ship's corridors. We're not here to make friends. We're here to make widows. The human Marines fought through the ship like a plague of destruction. They used explosives in enclosed spaces. They vented atmosphere to kill enemies hiding in sealed compartments. They turned the ship's own systems against its crew. Within 30 minutes, the destroyer belonged to them, but they did not try to capture it. They planted charges throughout the vessel and evacuated. The explosion took out 2 more enemy ships that had moved in to help. Dr. Amanda Foster watched the battle from the command ship's observation deck. She was a human combat psychologist, studying how warfare affected different species. What she saw confirmed her theories about human behavior under stress. Fascinating, she told the alien observers standing with her. Most species become less effective as battle conditions worsen. Humans become more effective. They literally thrive on chaos. Ambassador Zethkar watched human ships ramming enemy vessels at full speed. They are committing suicide to kill their enemies. This is madness. No, Dr. Foster replied. This is evolution. Humans evolved on a world where everything tried to kill them. They learned that sometimes the best defense is to make sure your enemy dies first, even if it kills you too. The Zephyrian commander realized his forces were in trouble. These new enemies fought like no species he had ever encountered. They showed no fear, no hesitation, no mercy. When surrounded, they attacked. When outnumbered, they charged. When dying, they took enemies with them. He tried to signal for negotiations. All civilized species would at least listen to terms. Perhaps these humans could be bought off or reasoned with. The human response came from Commander Foster personally. Zephyrian Commander, this is Foster of the Earth Defense Fleet. You have one chance to surrender unconditionally. You have 30 seconds to decide. The Zephyrian commander was confused. Surrender was for the losing side. His forces still outnumbered the humans. Why would he surrender when victory was still possible? Human commander, we are still superior in numbers and firepower. Why should we surrender to you? Foster's reply chilled every alien listening to the communication. Because in 30 seconds, we stop playing nice and start playing human. The Zephyrian commander did not understand the distinction. He soon learned. When the timer reached 0, the human fleet changed tactics. Where they had been aggressive before, they became absolutely ruthless. Ships that had been trying to capture enemy vessels intact began targeting life support systems. Fighters that had been engaging military targets started attacking civilian infrastructure. Captain Lisa Thompson commanded the human destroyer Reaper. Her mission changed from military engagement to total destruction. Her weapons began targeting the Zephyrian fleet's supply ships, medical vessels, and support craft. Sir, those are non-combatant vessels, her weapons officer reported. They support combat operations, Thompson replied. That makes them valid targets. Destroy them all. Within 2 hours, the Zephyrian siege of Arcturus Prime was broken. But the humans did not stop there. They pursued the retreating enemy fleet across 3 star systems. Every Zephyrian ship that could not keep up was hunted down and destroyed. Major Rachel Davis led the pursuit operation from her fast attack cruiser. Her orders were to ensure no enemy survivors reached their home territory with intelligence about human capabilities. "Remember, people," she told her crew, "wounded animals are dangerous, but dead ones are harmless. Make sure they're dead." The last Zephyrian ship was destroyed 6 days after the battle ended. There were no prisoners. There were no survivors. There was no one left to tell the Zephyrian High Command what had happened at Arcturus Prime. News of the human victory spread through Federation space faster than the ships that brought it. The impossible had happened. A force less than 1/10 the size of the enemy had achieved total victory with minimal losses. The humans had done in one battle what the Federation had failed to do in months of fighting, but the reports also included details that disturbed Federation leadership. The humans had not just defeated the Zephyrians, they had exterminated them. Not a single enemy combatant had survived the encounter. The concept of mercy had been completely absent from human military. Doctrine Ambassador Zethkar met with Admiral Sullivan after reading the battle reports. "Your people fought magnificently," he said, "but your methods concern us. You showed no quarter, took no prisoners, offered no mercy." "Mercy is for enemies who deserve it," Sullivan replied. "The Zephyrians chose total war. We gave them what they wanted. Would you prefer that we had allowed some to escape and report our capabilities to their leadership?" "But surely some could have been spared," Zethkar protested. "Some could have been reasoned with." Sullivan's expression remained neutral. "Ambassador, the Zephyrians had a choice at every point in this conflict. They could have withdrawn from Federation space. They could have accepted our surrender demand. They could have retreated when defeat became obvious. They chose to fight to the death. We honored their choice." She paused, then continued in a quieter voice. "The galaxy is about to learn something that humans discovered long ago. When you fight a war, you have two options: win completely or lose everything. The Zephyrians chose to make it a war of extinction. We simply made sure we were not the ones going extinct." 6 months after Arcturus Prime, the Zephyrian horde no longer existed. The species that had terrorized the galaxy for thousands of years was gone. Not defeated, not scattered, not hiding in distant corners of space. Completely extinct. Human. Forces had hunted down every ship, every outpost, every trace of Zephyrian civilization across 3 galaxy arms. The last battle took place at the Zephyrian home system. Sergeant Tony Williams led a marine assault on their final stronghold. His men found families hiding in underground shelters, children who had never seen war, elderly Zephyrians who could barely walk. "Just civilians, Sarge," reported Corporal Kevin Jones. "No weapons, no military value. What are your orders?" Williams checked his tactical display. Command had been very clear about the mission parameters. No Zephyrian survivors. No exceptions. No mercy. "You know the orders, Jones. Complete extinction was the objective. Complete extinction is what we deliver." The galaxy watched in stunned horror as humans demonstrated post-war behavior that somehow seemed more frightening than their actual fighting. They did not celebrate victory with parades or parties. They immediately began analyzing what they had learned and preparing for the next conflict. Colonel Mary Thompson submitted her after-action report to Earth Command 3 days after the last. Zephyrian died. Her document became required reading at every military academy in human space. It was clinical, detailed, and absolutely terrifying to any non-human who read it. "The Zephyrian campaign provided excellent training opportunities for our forces," she wrote. "Enemy tactics were predictable, and their technology was inferior to our own. Casualties were minimal, and objectives were achieved ahead of schedule. Recommend similar operations for crew training purposes." She discussed the systematic extermination of an entire species like it was a routine training exercise. The efficiency improvements suggested for future campaigns made Federation observers physically ill. Ambassador Helen Clark addressed the Galactic Council 1 week after the war ended. The chamber was packed with representatives from every member species. They had come to thank humanity for saving the Federation. Instead, they got a lesson in how little they understood their new allies. "Fellow beings," Clark began, "the Federation has survived its first existential threat in 8 centuries. The Zephyrian horde has been eliminated. Your worlds are safe. Your people can return to their normal lives. Applause filled the chamber. Representatives stood and cheered. They had been saved from destruction. Surely this was a cause for celebration. Clark waited for the applause to die down. However, I must address some concerns that have been raised about human military methods. Some of you seem disturbed by our thoroughness in dealing with the Zephyrian threat. The chamber grew quiet. This was not the gracious acceptance speech they had expected. Let me be very clear about something, Clark continued. The Zephyrian campaign was not a major military operation by human standards. We deployed less than 5% of our total forces. We used only conventional weapons. We followed rules of engagement that are considered quite restrictive by our military. The silence in the chamber was absolute. If this had been a minor effort, what was humanity truly capable of? To put this in perspective for you, Clark went on, humanity's bloodiest internal conflict killed more people in 6 years than have died in all galactic wars in the last 6 centuries. And that was just one war among many we have fought against ourselves. Dr. Peter Adams, Earth's chief anthropologist, presented his research to a closed session of Federation scientists. His findings were classified at the highest levels, but word of his conclusions spread quickly through government channels. The fundamental misunderstanding, Dr. Adams explained, is that other species assume human military capability was developed for fighting external threats. In reality, every weapon, every tactic, every strategic doctrine was created for fighting other humans. He showed them records of human conflicts that dwarfed the Zephyrian War. Battles where nuclear weapons turned continents into glass. Biological warfare that killed billions. Conflicts where both sides chose mutual destruction rather than surrender. Humans did not join galactic civilization because they had evolved beyond warfare, Adams continued. They joined because they had mastered warfare to such a degree that they became bored with fighting each other. The classified briefings continued for weeks. Federation leaders learned things about humanity that terrified them. Earth's peaceful history was actually an endless series of increasingly destructive conflicts. What humans called minor skirmishes would have been considered apocalyptic disasters by any other species. Major Rachel Davis presented classified footage of human civil conflicts to a small group of Federation military leaders. The images showed ordinary humans transformed into killing machines that made professional soldiers look like children playing at war. This is footage from what we call the Second American Civil War, Davis explained. It lasted 18 months and killed 40 million people. The participants were not professional soldiers. They were teachers, farmers, shopkeepers, and office workers. The alien observers watched humans who looked like any peaceful citizen commit acts of violence that exceeded anything they had seen from the Zephyrians. Worse, they did it with a casual efficiency that suggested such behavior was perfectly normal. The capacity for violence is not limited to our military forces, Davis continued. It exists in every human. We simply choose when to use it. One of the observers, a representative from the Pacifist Alliance, asked the question that haunted everyone. How do you control such violent impulses? Davis smiled, but there was no warmth in it. We do not control them. We aim them. There is a difference. The psychological evaluations were even more disturbing. Human mental health professionals studied how other species reacted to warfare and trauma. Their findings revealed fundamental differences that went beyond culture or training. Dr. Jennifer Walsh, Earth's leading combat psychologist, presented her research to the Federation Medical Council. Most species experience warfare as traumatic stress that impairs their ability to function. Humans experience warfare as a natural state that enhances their performance. She showed brain scans of humans before, during, and after combat. Where other species showed stress responses that would cripple normal functioning, humans showed increased focus, improved reaction times, and enhanced decision-making abilities. Combat does not break the human mind, Dr. Walsh explained. It awakens capabilities that remain dormant during peacetime. We literally become more effective as conditions become more dangerous. The Federation Council met in emergency session to discuss the implications of these discoveries. They had allied themselves with a species that considered genocide a tactical option and extinction a valid solution to political problems. Worse, humans seemed to view their own capacity for destruction as perfectly normal. Ambassador Zethkar stood before the assembled representatives. We face a troubling question. We invited humanity into the Federation because we needed their help against an existential threat. That threat is gone. But now we must decide what to do about the solution we unleashed. The debate that followed lasted for days. Some species wanted to limit human military capabilities. Others argued that such limitations would only encourage humans to develop better weapons in secret. A few suggested that humanity should be expelled from the Federation before they became too powerful to resist. "We created this situation," pointed out the representative from the Crystalline Collective. "We asked them to save us. They did exactly what we requested. We cannot blame them for being effective." "But their methods were monstrous," protested the Ethereal Council's observer. "They eliminated an entire species without hesitation or regret." "Because that species was trying to eliminate us," Zethkar replied. "The humans did what we could not. They prevented our extinction by ensuring the extinction of our enemies. Are we truly upset that they succeeded too completely?" The final vote was close. The Federation would maintain its alliance with humanity, but new protocols were established. Human military operations would be subject to Federation oversight. Human colonies would be monitored for aggressive expansion. Human research into weapons technology would be limited by treaty. When Ambassador Clark received the Council's decision, her response was politely diplomatic. "Of course, Earth will comply with all Federation requirements. We have no desire to cause our allies unnecessary concern." But privately, she met with Admiral Sullivan to discuss the implications. "They want to put restrictions on our military," Clark reported. "Let them," Sullivan replied. "Restrictions only matter if you intend to follow them. And restrictions only work if you have the power to enforce them. Are you suggesting we ignore Federation law?" Sullivan's smile was cold as space. "I am suggesting that the Federation exists because we allow it to exist. They seem to have forgotten that basic fact. Perhaps it is time to remind them." The galaxy had learned to fear humanity not because they were evil, but because they had made evil afraid. The price of victory was the knowledge that their saviors might one day decide they no longer needed saving. 5 years after first contact, the galaxy operated under rules that no one had written down, but everyone understood. The Pax Humana was not maintained through treaties or trade agreements. It existed because every thinking being in known space understood one simple fact. Crossing humanity meant extinction. Fleet Admiral Chris Rodriguez commanded the largest military force in galactic history from his flagship orbiting Earth. His fleet did not just patrol human space. It served as the galaxy's ultimate deterrent against any species foolish enough to consider aggression. Pirates surrendered at the first sight of human ships. Raiders fled rather than fight. Would-be conquerors found peaceful solutions to their territorial disputes. The change had not happened overnight. It began with small incidents that sent clear messages throughout the galaxy. When the Corvan pirates attacked a Federation trade convoy, human ships arrived within hours. The pirates expected a negotiation or perhaps a small skirmish. Instead, they got complete annihilation. Not just their ships, but their entire organization. Human forces tracked down every pirate base, every supply depot, every family member who had ever supported piracy. The Corvan pirates became a historical footnote. President Laura Johnson addressed the annual gathering of the Galactic Council from her office on Earth. The alien leaders who once looked down on humanity as primitive newcomers now hung on her every word. Her speeches had become the galaxy's most important political events. "My fellow beings," Johnson began, "another year has passed in peace and prosperity. Trade flourishes between our worlds. Scientific cooperation continues to advance all species. Cultural exchange enriches every civilization." The assembled representatives nodded and made approving sounds. Everything she said was true. The galaxy had never been more peaceful or more prosperous. "This peace exists," Johnson continued, "because we have all learned to respect certain boundaries. We offer friendship to those who deserve it, protection to those who need it, and extinction to those who threaten peace." The words had become humanity's unofficial motto. Every species in the galaxy knew them by heart. They were carved into monuments, printed on currency, and taught to children in schools across 1,000 worlds. Dr. Kevin Taylor published his anthropological study 5 years after the Zephyrian War. His book, titled Apex Predators: Why Humans Don't Fit Galactic Civilization, became required reading at every university in Federation space. His conclusions were simple but terrifying. Humans were not invited into galactic society, he wrote. They conquered it through the simple expedient of being willing to do what others would not. They smile when they speak of peace, but their eyes hold the cold calculation of predators, deciding whether you are worth keeping alive. The book included detailed analysis of human behavior patterns that other species found deeply disturbing. Humans could switch from friendly diplomats to ruthless killers in seconds. They could discuss genocide over dinner without losing their appetite. They could plan the destruction of entire civilizations while helping their neighbors with everyday problems. The fundamental error, Taylor explained, was assuming that humans think like other species. They do not. They are the galaxy's apex predator wearing the mask of civilization. The mask is convincing, but it is still just a mask. Captain Maria Garcia commanded the human embassy ship that orbited the Federation capital. Her vessel had become the most important location in galactic politics. Representatives from species that had once considered themselves great powers now came as supplicants seeking human approval for their policies. The Valerian Empire wanted to expand into a new star system. They submitted detailed plans to the human embassy explaining why the expansion was necessary, how it would benefit the galaxy, and what safeguards they would put in place to avoid conflict. They waited nervously for human approval, like children asking permission from their parents. The Crystalline Collective proposed a new trade agreement with the Ethereal Council. Both species had negotiated such agreements for centuries without outside interference. Now they sought human mediation to ensure the deal met with approval. They knew that human displeasure could mean economic disaster. Even the mighty Thanagarian Empire, which had dominated galactic politics for millennia, deferred to human judgment on military matters. When border disputes arose, they asked human observers to determine fair solutions. When territorial claims conflicted, they accepted human arbitration as final. Ambassador Zethkar had not aged well in the 5 years since first contact. His 4 arms shook constantly now, and his once proud bearing had become hunched and fearful. He spent his days writing reports that no one would ever read, documenting the slow transformation of galactic civilization. We thought we were granting membership to another civilized species, he wrote in his private journal. Instead, we handed the keys of galactic civilization to a species of warriors wearing the mask of diplomacy. His final official report to the Valerian High Command would become one of the most important historical documents in galactic archives. Future historians would point to it as the moment when the old order finally acknowledged the new reality. The Federation as we knew it no longer exists, Zethkar wrote. Oh, the institutions remain. The council still meets. The committees still debate. The bureaucrats still file reports. But real power rests with a single species that could destroy any of us without breaking stride. He described a galaxy where former superpowers competed to please their human overlords, where species that had never known fear now trembled at the thought of human displeasure, where the mere possibility of human intervention was enough to prevent conflicts that had raged for centuries. They rule us not through force, but through the promise of force, Zethkar explained. We obey not because they command us, but because we know the consequences of disobedience. They have created an empire without declaring it. They have conquered the galaxy without firing a shot. The transformation was complete when the first human exploration vessels pushed beyond the galactic rim into unknown space. Other species had been content to map nearby systems and establish trade routes with known civilizations. Humans wanted to see what lay beyond the edge of everything. Captain Robert Chen led the deep space exploration mission aboard the starship Pathfinder. His orders were simple: find new worlds, contact new species, and extend human influence as far as possible. The ship carried a message for any intelligent life they encountered. We come in peace, the message began. We represent the Galactic Federation and seek friendship with all intelligent species. We offer trade, knowledge, and protection to those who desire it. The message continued with detailed information about Federation benefits and requirements for membership. It explained the advantages of joining galactic civilization and the prosperity that awaited cooperative species. The final paragraph was brief but unmistakable. Those who choose hostility over friendship should understand that the Federation has the means to defend itself. Surrender or die. The choice is yours. Captain Chen's crew included diplomats, scientists, and cultural specialists, but it also included enough firepower to sterilize entire star systems. The exploration mission was prepared for either outcome. News of the first contact with the hegemony reached Earth 6 months later. The new species was advanced, aggressive, and completely confident in their ability to resist any outside interference. They had been the dominant power in their region of space for over 2,000 years. They saw the humans as amusing primitives from a backward galaxy. The hegemony's first mistake was capturing a human diplomatic vessel and executing its crew. They broadcast the executions across Federation space as a demonstration of their power. They wanted the galaxy to know that they would not be intimidated by threats from inferior species. Admiral Rodriguez received the authorization he had been waiting for. The gloves were coming off. The hegemony war lasted exactly 72 hours. When it ended, the hegemony no longer existed. Their homeworld was a ball of radioactive glass. Their colonies were empty ruins. Their fleets were scattered debris drifting through space. The species that had dominated their region for millennia had been erased from existence. The message was clear to anyone capable of understanding it. The galaxy had new rulers. They preferred cooperation to conquest, but they were perfectly willing to choose conquest if cooperation was refused. 10 years after first contact, Ambassador Zethkar made his final entry in the journal that had become his life's work. His hands shook as he wrote the words that would define humanity's place in galactic history. "We learned that day why evolution creates predators," he wrote. "Not to destroy, but to ensure that only species strong enough to coexist with death itself can survive. Humanity did not join galactic civilization. Galactic civilization adapted to accommodate humanity or ceased to exist." He set down his writing instrument and looked out at the stars. Somewhere out there, human ships were pushing deeper into unknown space, carrying their message of friendship and their promise of extinction to species that had never heard of Earth. The galaxy learned to fear humanity not because they were monsters, Zethkar concluded, but because they made monsters afraid.